If you've seen the latest trailer for Diablo 4, then you know that the game is shaping up to be one hell of a good time. To get you ready for when all hell breaks loose on June 6th, here's everything you need to know about Diablo 4. Much like the previous games in the series, Diablo 4 is a hack-and-slay game set in the world of Sanctuary, where angels and demons war in an eternal conflict. Instead of the serious classic villain Diablo taking center stage, we have Lilith shaping up to be the game's main antagonist. If you have played Diablo 3, you may have already met this enigmatic demon, as her diary entries can be found in the game's Fortress of Madness, revealing much of her backstory. Lilith was born to the demon Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred. After capturing the angel Anarius, she fell into a passionate relationship with the angel as they both sought to escape the eternal conflict between their two races. It is for this purpose that they created the world of Sanctuary together with the Nephalem. How her story will affect the game's main story is unknown to us at the moment, but we do know that she has a brother and a son who could definitely come into play. We will just have to wait for the game's release to see what the Daughter of Hate and Mother of Sanctuary has in store for us. So, you might be wondering how you will progress through the game's storyline. Blizzard will be holding strong to the established act structure of the franchise with a bit of innovation added to the mix. While players will start their first act in the Fractured Peaks, they will not need to actually complete their first act to advance to the second or even third act. While there is a main story that you can follow, the open world nature of the game means that players can stumble from one act into the next as they venture across the various areas of the game. Pacing of this title will be slower than in the other games, but there's also more to discover. For example, the newly added Renown system, which rewards players for engaging in different types of content with fun things such as extra potion charges, skill points, and other benefits whenever they engage in activities outside of the main quest line. The biggest innovation coming to Diablo 4 is by far its open world. In this world standing at the brink of total apocalypse, players will be able to make their way across 5 areas as they so choose. These areas include the cold mountains in the Fractured Peaks, the highlands of Skosklen, the hostile deserts of Kyrgyzstan, the stretches of the dry steppe, and the gloomy swamps of Hawassa. And there's more. Locations from previous games will also make an appearance, such as Lut Golan from Diablo 2, Caldeum from Diablo 3, and, of course, Hell. As far as we can see in the trailers, this game is going to be very beautiful. Blizzard is doing all that they can to make this world as immersive as possible, smoothly transitioning environment into one another and adding new verticality and exploration options in the form of climbing and traversing obstacles. The combat itself is shaping up to be a beautiful ballad of brutality, as Blizzard has made some changes in their approach to monsters and their abilities. In addition to their standard attacks, monsters will each have a recognizable ability to make them stand out more in combat. A new intensity meter has also been added to the game, increasing the aggressiveness and difficulty of monsters as your experience increases. The endgame content in the game will have 4 main features in the beginning: strongholds, dungeons, world bosses, and the Paragon system. Strongholds are special areas within the world where you will have to fight your way through hordes of monsters and powerful bosses to figure out what happened within them. Completing a stronghold will not only reward the player with lots of loot and experience, but may also provide them with new waypoints, dungeons, and quests to look forward to. You can find multiple strongholds per region, but keep in mind that they each have a level requirement attached to them. You could still try them before you've reached that requirement, but it's not recommended by the devs as the difficulty will be hellish. Randomized dungeons will also appear throughout the world of Diablo 4, ranging from underground caves to distant monasteries and dense forests. Now, each dungeon will have its own special objective to complete inside, rewarding players with additional loot. These goals include killing a specified number of enemies or defeating a certain boss. Nightmare dungeons will also become available to players with the completion of the main quest series. These dungeons are way harder than normal dungeons with additional objectives, modifiers, and properties, but will also provide players with even better rewards. If you want to fight even bigger bosses, there are also world bosses, which sometimes appear as events across Sanctuary. These massive enemies will require several players to wipe them out, meaning that groups or raids for world bosses will be a major social events in the player hub. Aside from powerful loot, they also drop a resource called Scattered Prisons, which players can use to add sockets to items to increase their power. Last but not least, the Paragon system will also return in Diablo 4, but this time it will be much more complex. Once you reach level 50, you get access to the Paragon board. This represents a new skill tree of its own, with dozens of nodes waiting to be unlocked. On the page of the active board, there are transitions that lead you to additional boards. These in turn have their own layouts and offer new fields that you can unlock. To really help you plan your build, there is always a list of new fields to choose from. These can also be rotated before you pin them to the exit of your choice. Since there's no limit to the Paragon level, you can unlock an infinite number of new fields, but the more you level up, the slower you progress. The game will also feature 5 well-known classes in the full release in June. The Barbarian is a master in using various weapons. In battle, he uses his brute strength and makes earth tremble with war cries and seismic blows. The Barbarian has 4 weapon slots, then can use both a two-handed weapon and 2 one-handed weapons in one build. When an ability that requires a specific weapon is used, it is automatically drawn, allowing for quick and automatic weapon switching. And yes, there is Whirlwind. As a shapeshifter, the druid can quickly switch forms between a bear and a werewolf. Additionally, he can remain as a human to unleash the destructive power of nature on his enemies. Each form will provide the druid with certain advantages and abilities. Using the ability of another form will automatically transform the druid into that form, allowing for quick transitions in combat even when using multiple abilities from different forms in direct succession. Rogues are masters of both melee and range combat, wielding swords and daggers up close and bows and crossbows from afar. The rogue's basic skills generate a resource called combo points. Certain skills will use up these combo points for additional deadly effects. You might also be playing your good old friend the Necromancer. Necromancers are masters of death magic, requiring them to make careful use of 2 resources: Essence and Corpses. Essence is a necromancer's primary resource, replenishing slowly over time and building up through basic skills. Corpses, however, are created by killing enemies and can be used to summon skeletons or create powerful explosions. Corpses may also be generated through a few of the necromancer's abilities, meaning that you will never need to worry about running out of them. Sorcerer is a master of the elements, conjuring powerful lightning bolts, spikes of ice, and flaming meteors to defeat her enemies. She also has the added benefit of making dungeons feel less gloomy, lighting up the darkness with her beautiful animations. Items are one of the, if not the most important feature of hack and slay games like Diablo 4, providing players with powerful boosts to their abilities as well as maintaining their long-term motivation. Luckily enough, Diablo's 4 system isn't too difficult to understand and will be more interesting than the system used in Diablo 3. It follows the simple rule of harder content means better loot, and Blizzard has confirmed that they are implementing measures to avoid bloating player inventories with too much trash along the way, especially in the endgame where higher level dungeon keys will mean better stats on the items you find within. This way you shouldn't get bloated with loot like in Path of Exile, but instead get less loot with better stats. While cutting through waves of enemies, you might find legendary items. These items each have legendary affixes that are randomly generated, adding new ability or potentially modifying an ability that has already been learned. Some of these will be usable by all classes, while others will be limited to specific classes. Take for example a Sorceress Teleport skill. Legendary affixes for this may include a nullifying barrier, a fiery explosion, or a reduced cooldown at the cost of a randomized endpoint. Like legendary items, unique items will also be present in the game, containing preset affixes that will never change. Items can be traded amongst players, though there will be some limitations to this. Items will be separated into one of the 3 categories, being either always tradable, tradable once, or non-tradable. So be careful when you trade over that impressive greatsword to your friend, as you might not be able to get it back. Finally, the game will also include a transmogrification system, allowing you to change the appearance of items as you please. I mean, after all, you can't fight your way through the forces of hell if you don't look badass, right? While the game can be completed all by yourself, fighting your way through the forces of hell will be much more fun with friends. This is made easy by the game, featuring both couch co-op and online cross-play between PC and console players. So, better gather your party of up to 4 adventurers and get ready to bust down the gates of hell, and maybe show off some of the game's cool emotes while you're at it. Prior to the game's launch on June 6th, there will be both a pre-access and an open beta weekend. Those of you who pre-ordered Diablo 4 can get started this weekend, and the open beta, which is open to all players, will run from March 24th to 27th. During the pre-access event, you can hack and slay your way through Sanctuary as either the Barbarian, the Rogue, or the Sorcerer, with the Druid and Necromancer joining the fray in the open beta. In either case, characters will only be able to level up to level 25. Playing during the pre-access or beta will also allow you to collect free rewards to show off when Diablo 4 releases. These rewards include 2 player titles and 1 Better Wolf bundle cosmetic item. After the game's full release, content will come on a season basis, with the new patches expected every 3 months, similar to Diablo 3 or Path of Exile. Now you should feel nice and prepared for when all hell breaks loose in June. I will be releasing more Diablo content in the upcoming weeks, so join the channel if you don't want to miss this. Happy hunting, Nephalem, and see you in the next one.